Hi, I'm Alan Ross. I'm the managing editor of APC Media's publications, Transformer Technology, Power Systems Technology, and Women in Power Systems. We're here at the IEEE PES-T&D conference in Anaheim in 2024, the 60th anniversary. These interviews are with thought leaders to be able to bring the best of the marketplace to you. My next guest is Damir Novosel. Damir is an old friend of APC Media. We've done this before. We did the last one at Seagray 2023, right? Seagray North America?
Yes, it was.
Right. You did not want to do that interview, and it turned out to be pretty good, didn't it?
That was great. I enjoyed it. I must tell you, you're absolutely right.
We had fun doing that. What I really want to focus on, I do want to focus on Quanta, what's happening at Quanta Technology. You're the president of Quanta Technology, right?
Yes, I am.
There's also
And the founder.
And the founder. I'm sorry,
Right.
that's
No,
right.
no,
I
no.
forgot that one. Right. I did read the bio, but I forgot. But I want to find out a little bit what's happening at Quanta since the last time we talked. I want to find out what's happening here with the EAC, the Executive Advisory Council of IEEE. It's the 60th anniversary of IEEE PES-T&D, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first of all, what's happening with you? How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulously well because there are so many great things happening in the industry.
Yeah.
And it's good to be part of it. I'm actually very proud to have opportunities to be, again, not just me, but with my team at Quanta, but also as part of the IEEE to be part of that major change that is happening in our industry.
Yeah, and so the last time we talked, the major change was well underway. It seems like there's major change upon major change.
Yes.
What do you think the biggest changes are right now taking place in the industry?
I think the major issue now is, and again, as you say, there are constant change.
Well,
actually,
I know.
When we say major changes, it seems to be happening every time. But now the big issue is, of course, with the data centers.
Right.
And I don't call it an issue because it's a great opportunity to address major needs for the society, but also for our industry as well.
Yeah.
So data centers from the perspective of AI now.
Right, yeah.
And again, I'm looking from two perspectives. How industry like ours can actually support building those major data centers.
Yeah.
And then how, of course, the technology itself, AI, can help manage the grid and what we do in a better way. So I think this is now, in addition to all the other things that we talked before, I think that's the latest aspect. The other aspect is it's very interesting how things, we move in a way, in a certain trajectory, but things become more important. For example, last time we talked about flexibility.
Right.
Grid flexibility. Now the latest is really grid affordability.
Affordability.
Yes.
Well, that's beginning to spike up.
Yeah, it was always the case, don't get me wrong, but I think there is a now understanding how by making some of those changes and need for investment in the grid requires to look into how to optimize this type of investment.
That's an interesting, because a report I just read, and it was more conjecture than a report.
Right.
It talked about what is likely to happen if we have a political change in this country, and we suddenly don't have the government spending as much. DOE is spending a lot of money. Everyone's spending a lot of money on grid modernization, electrification. We've already seen a little bit of a downturn in transportation, that they're not building as many cars because we have no infrastructure. And even though we're trying to spend a lot of money, given the fact that some of the things that are government subsidized, if they go away, can the industry sustain that change?
I must tell you, I have a pretty strong opinion that when we talk affordability, we need to look at the bigger picture. Let's say you have more electrification coming up.
Right.
You have data centers. We talk about addressing, greenhouse gases and so on.
Yeah.
And as you are investing more in electricity, there are other areas that will not be as invested in.
Right.
For example, gas. Or, if you are going to use more electrical cars, you are going to use less gasoline cars.
Right.
So if you look at your overall bill, electrical bill may go up, but your gasoline bill should go down. So we always need to look at the overall cost of energy.
Right.
So as we are doing in that direction, I don't see that investing in electrical energy is going to cost us more if we do it in an optimal way.
Total cost of energy.
Total cost of energy.
We should start using that. Instead of total cost of ownership, we should use total cost of energy.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'll steal it with pride.
Okay,
from
no,
you.
do that. You are welcome. So I have done some work in the hydrogen sector. And the hydrogen sector, especially in Europe, they're pushing more for hydrogen as an energy gas.
Right.
It's the joke is hydrogen is the gas of the future, and it always will be because we never kind of get there. Right. But there is a sea change going on in the energy sector. That's a good point. Right. As one's up, one's down. The winners and the losers are going to I think, are the people that build infrastructure, right? I want to specifically ask something that is it's not a trick question, you just made me think of it. I know that Quanta is, one of your organizations is pretty much rebuilding Puerto Rico.
Right.
That's a structural problem. They keep having hurricanes, they have forest fires, they had an earthquake. Right. When we talk about building or rebuilding structure, if we rebuild it the way it was, we're going to fail again because all of the different weather patterns, forest fires, all of those things. How do you address rebuilding the structure so that, I don't want to say it's flexible, that it's stable, that it's sustainable?
Right. But let me also bring another aspect, and I'll get to your point, is understanding that the grid is enabler of addressing some of the energy needs. Let's start with that first. So renewables and grid are not competing.
Right.
Renewables cannot be properly utilized without the grid. Even if you talk about hydrogen. At the end of the day, there will be connection with how you utilize the energy in the right way. And hydrogen will be part of this overall managing the overall infrastructure. And so now when we're coming back to Luma, or actually to Puerto Rico, understanding that as we are increasing investment in renewables, that we need to then increase investments in the grid because they complement each other. Of course, it's done in a different way. There may be different locations of where you need to invest. You may be investing in certain areas when you have lots of solar. And that's fine. So, but it's still, just believing that you can just have a PV on your rooftop and Powerwall will solve the problems, I think it's very naive. And it's actually going to cost more. So there is a reason why originally some power plants were centralized. Because, I don't know if you look at how grid started, it started as a decentralized grid. And now, of course, with renewables, you have lots of things to do it differently and better, but then it still needs to be done in an integrated, coordinated fashion. So that's why I'm very big on integrated, as we call it, G-squared T&D planning. Because you have generation is not generation, is the fuel. What fuel you use. And then T, transmission and distribution, how you plan better. But coming back to your point, and you raised a really important issue. Grid, if you don't do anything with the grid, it will deteriorate every year 10%. And I think it's lack of understanding that if you do nothing, it will go down. It will not stay the same. So just to have it stay the same, you need to invest. But then coming back to your point, we need to do it in a different way. So where do you invest, how invest, and that's what Luma is doing, trying to prioritize, optimize where the best investment should be, and then utilize the technology to do so. And that's where, to your point again, it comes back to DOE or the government and so on, to actually provide this seed funding to invest in some of this technology and leverage the technology in the best possible way. And to me, Puerto Rico is actually a perfect case to do some of the new and exciting things. Because it's an island. It's still not big island. Think about load in Puerto Rico versus, let's say, Southern California, Edison, or California, and so on. So you can actually really do lots of things in a different way. And I think that's what Luma is trying to accomplish. But again, it requires that collaborative work. As I don't know if we had a chance to listen to the speech this morning with the economist Michael Spence, the Nobel Prize economist, that emphasized the importance of not confrontational approach, but working together.
Yeah.
Regulators, utilities, consumers, all need to be working together to achieve the goal. If you start having these adversarial relationships that unfortunately sometimes happen too often, then you don't do it right. So to your point, we need to do things differently. We cannot do things just the same way.
Right.
But it needs to be done in collaboration with all important organizations. And that's where actually IEEE comes in. Because IEEE is extremely unique in the industry.
Yeah.
It's objective, it's independent, and it includes all the players. There are regulators. I was just talking to Joe Palladino from DOE, coming here, and we were talking about how DOE and IEEE can work together on integrated planning.
Right.
And then again, you have regulators, you have vendors participating, utilities.
Yeah.
You and I participate.
Yeah.
So I think it's a unique organization, and that's why I'm very passionate about IEEE.
So now that's going to be my ending, is you are the secretary, and I think you were the past president of the EAC, the Executive Advisory Council, right? That's a heavy lift, because you all are directing the future of IEEE. You just talked about the president of IEEE and the passion of collaboration. Talk a little bit about what you see without giving anything away that we're not allowed to share yet. What do you think the future of IEEE looks like next 10 years?
You know, I must tell you, our industry needs IEEE.
Yes.
And Executive Advisory Council, when I was the president of the Power Energy Society, together with, at that time, VP of New Initiatives, Sheba Hramirad, we formed the EAC. And we also formed so-called Industry Technical Support Leadership Committee. The reason for this was there is a perception that IEEE is too academic.
Okay.
And I would say nothing is further from the truth. 70% of IEEE members are industry. But of course, we have a very strong academic content because of the transaction papers, conferences, and so on. So it's a great thing. And academia and industry need to work very closely together.
Yes.
But then to emphasize the industry, we first do standards. Nothing can be more practical than standards. Okay, so that's what IEEE does.
Yeah.
But then also having that reach on the more regulatory side. That's why this ITSLC was formed, because we signed the MOUs with NERC, FERC, and DOE.
Right.
And we have regular meetings with them, and it's working really well. And then in addition, Executive Advisory Council that has the role to provide executive perspective. And provide executive perspective to IEEE, but also IEEE then impacts executives to go back to their organization and say, look what IEEE is doing. And then these two organizations actually work very closely together to help make a difference in the industry. So as I look in the future, like these two organizations working together with technical committees, with local chapters, with academia and so on, are critical to now help focus the industry to do, to your point, proper investments, to make a change in the right way. Because I think one of the discussions we had with EAC, I think you'll like this, was how do we address that gap between we want to achieve carbon goals and all,
Right.
but what's the technical reality? And very often the politics and certain business goals start influencing it, that move into the direction that is really not good for the society.
Right.
And that's where IEEE comes in and tries to put the objective, technical, clear perspective and help the industry move forward.
It's collaboration is probably my favorite term.
Yes.
Right? Collaboration. Is it safe to say that IEEE is the glue that causes collaboration? Because you, as you said, you touch every part of it is part of IEEE,
yes.
and so it kind of becomes the glue. I made that up too. You can use that as well.
No, I will actually. You're absolutely right. I think you hit the nail on the head. IEEE is the glue.
Good.
And that's why actually IEEE and SIGRE, I think when I was giving the SIGRE interview, I mentioned IEEE. And
No, you got to mention secret.
I have to mention SIGRE, and that's the point. And these two organizations have a different models,
Yes, yeah.
but they complement each other actually nicely. And by working together, and we do work, I'm involved in SIGRE IEEE. You know, Chris Root
Yes.
is the president of SIGRE,
Yeah.
is actually represented the Power Energy Society on IEEE board.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are very much in one family, let me put it that way.
You're incestuous together.
No, not incestuous.
Here's what's another thing that's very important. The problems are global.
Right.
There is not one player, even though I is international, there is no one player that can solve all the problems. So the idea that we have global, you said society is global. We're not just trying to do it for the United States or Europe or Asia or the Middle East. It is a global solution, and you need global organizations like SIGRE, like IEEE to come together to do it.
Yeah, and I actually, one of the things that we are very proud of in the last few years, and again, it was a really great teamwork at IEEE Power Energy Society with the governing board and so on, because we're really pulling in the same direction,
Right.
and we continue doing this, was that more than 50% of the members of IEEE are outside North America.
Wow, I didn't know
And
that.
that's very important emphasis,
Yeah.
because still sometimes, again, those are the perceptions.
Right.
That's why these interviews are important. And hopefully people will see that and understand that actually how IEEE is very global organization, and we are putting lots of effort. For example, EAC you mentioned, we started with the North America first.
Right.
Okay. But now we are moving to Latin America, we are moving to Europe, we are moving to Asia. We want to do the same thing.
Right.
Because it's important to get input from executives from other regions.
Right.
And that's that global aspect, and that's how we learn the best possible way.
You will end up with an IEAC, International Executive, maybe someday.
Okay, maybe. No, see, the point is, and I don't want to go into the details, but we could have had like one executive advisory council for the whole world.
Right.
But our approach is that's the future.
Yeah.
And I'm working with Nureddin Hajisad, who is the VP of New Initiatives, to actually address that. We want to start with have EACs for each region.
Right.
And then we'll have because it's easier to manage, to get people engaged, to deal, but again, we will bring knowledge coming from different regions.
Right.
So let's say you have EAC in Europe, when we have a meeting and there'll be a presentation, will be a global perspective.
Right.
But still, there will be focus on some of the needs of the, let's say, Europe and or Africa in that regard. But then we plan to have on top of this international EAC, IEAC. See, we already have a name. Man, I should do more interviews with you,
Well,
because
that's
then I'll be learning more.
My last point is we're going to do this again at Grid Edge, right?
Okay, let's do. Then we'll see. So, but seriously, that's really the important part. Will be then to have maybe once a year,
right,
or maybe I don't know, that meeting with executives that will be global and try to bridge it together. So that's the future.
Okay, maybe I will show up at that one and we'll do some interviews there.
Well, actually, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because the key is also to promote what we do.
I know.
Again, Alan, that's the thing. This type of interviews, not about me or whoever. It's about us communicating the message, so all our membership can really hear about it and get more engaged. Because the key of IEEE and SIGRE is the membership.
Yes.
You don't want to have the same people all the time. You want to have new people. Have fresh thinking, and that's really important. And that's my plea is to get more people to get engaged, to take leadership roles, to be active. Yeah. There is so many things to do. To your point, let's say the future. I mean, like we are doing yesterday, we had a meeting with this ITSLC and we were talking about topics. And then people came like with, 10 fabulous topics. Yeah. Everybody says, all these topics are great. I said, but who's going to do the work?
Yes, right.
But then if you reach out to the membership and people get engaged, then we'll make it happen.
Yeah, well, you just made a great plea. I really appreciate the fact that IEEE PES not only allows us to do this, but sponsors us to do this. They give us a nice wall, better than the last time, but those kinds of things. But Damir, so the next time we're together, we're going to do this again, and we're going to go to the next step in that process.
Thanks.
Damir
And I
Novosel.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.